Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we decode those dusty corporate filings. Today we're looking at Invitation Homes, and let's just say they're playing a tune with their latest money moves, and it's got a serious rhythm section. So Invitation Homes, what do? They're a big player in the single-family rental housing market. Think of them as a giant landlord owning and managing thousands of homes across the US. They're trying to make renting a house a smooth experience, kind of like a hotel but for families. Alright, the main event here is a big financial deal, Invitation Homes Operating Partnership, which is basically their main operating company. Just closed a huge public offering. We're talking about $600 million worth of something called senior notes. Now, what are senior notes, you ask? Think of them as IOUs, but from a company, and these are considered higher priority if things go south for the company. They're basically borrowing a lot of money. They're borrowing it by selling these notes that they promise to pay back with interest. These specific notes are for almost $600 million, and they have a 4.95% interest rate, and they're due in 2033. That means they've got to pay back this money, plus the interest by 2033. It's a pretty big chunk of change. And here's a crucial detail. The parent company, Invitation Homes Inc., along with a couple of other subsidiaries, are backing these notes. They're called guarantors. This means if the operating partnership can't pay, the parent company and these other entities have to step in. They're essentially saying, we've got this to the people buying these notes. Now, when you borrow this much money, there are always strings attached. The agreement, called an indenture, has rules. One of these rules is that the company has to keep a certain amount of its assets free and clear, meaning not already promised as collateral for other loans. This is to make sure they have some wiggle room if they get into trouble. And at this, even more subsidiaries might have to guarantee these notes later. If any of the other subsidiaries start guaranteeing their main credit line, they'll also have to guarantee these notes. It's like piling on more safety nets. The people who bought these notes initially, the underwriters, paid a little less than the full face value. They paid about 98.85% of the $600 million. This means the company got slightly less than the full $600 million up front, but they're still on the hook for the full $600 million plus interest later. This is common in these types of offerings. These notes are what they call senior unsecured debt. This means they're pretty important but not backed by specific property. They're in the same boat as other debts that don't have specific collateral. But, and it's always a but, these specific notes are lower down the pecking order compared to other debts. If the company has to sell assets to pay debts, the debts that actually have property tied to them, like mortgages, get paid first. Also, debts from subsidiaries that don't guarantee these notes get paid before these ones. It's a bit like a tiered system for getting paid back. So the basic interest rate is 4.95% per year. Not terrible, not amazing, but it's a constant cost for the company. This whole deal was put together with help from some big names in finance: Buffer Securities, BMO Capital Markets, and JP Morgan Securities. They acted as the underwriters, basically helping sell these notes for Invitation Homes. Scroll Schroyer to November 15, 2032. The issuer may redeem the notes at its option in whole or in part at any time, and from time to time at a redemption price in cash, expressed as a percentage of principal amount and rounded to 3 decimal places equal to the greater of the sum of the present values of the remaining scheduled payments of ALA principal amount, and the node to 3 decimal places equal to the greater of the sum of the present values of the remaining scheduled payments of ALA key print checks to the principal amount, and rounded to 3 decimal places equal to the greater of eta of the sum of the present values of the remaining scheduled payments of ALOF principal 30 due date. They can do this any time before November 2000 discounted to the redemption date, assuming the notes matured on the par call date, on a sema of the present values of the remaining scheduled payments of Aloki Pental and interest thereon discounted to the redemption date, assuming the notes matured on the principal 13 basis points less the unpaid interest accrued thereon to, but not including the redemption likes fall. After that date, November 2032, they can pay them back at face value plus the interest owed. So they have flexibility to manage their debt depending on market conditions. Like any loan, there are things that are considered a default, meaning they've broken the rules of the agreement. If that happens, the whole amount of the loan could be due immediately. Missing an interest payment for 30 days is a big red flag. Another trigger is if the company or any of its major subsidiaries miss a payment on other significant debts, especially if it's over $50 million. If they don't fix that within 60 days, it's game over for these notes, meaning they could be immediately due. If any of the companies that guaranteed these notes suddenly says they won't honor their guarantee, or if a court says the guarantee isn't valid anymore, that's also a default. It means their promises aren't worth the paper they're written on. And of course, the biggest one, if the company or any of its main parts go bankrupt, or if a court appoints someone to manage their assets, these notes are in immediate trouble. This whole offering was set up through a process called a shelf registration. Basically, they got a pre-approved filing with the SEC that allowed them to sell these notes quickly when the time was right, which was August 2025. It's a way to be prepared for major funding needs. So what's the big picture here? Invitation Homes is borrowing a significant amount of money to fund its operations or expansion. They're using their operating company to issue the debt, and the parent company is backing it up. This is a common strategy for large companies. By taking on this debt, they're signaling confidence in their ability to generate enough cash flow to pay it back. However, it also increases their financial risk. If the housing market or rental income falters, they could face serious problems. The inclusion of various default triggers and guarantor clauses shows how they're trying to reassure lenders, but also highlight the potential downside if things go wrong as that. They're signaling confidence in their ability to generate enough cash flow to pay it back. However, it also increases their financial risk if the housing market or rental income falters. They could face serious problems. The inclusion of various default triggers and guarantor clauses shows how they're trying to reassure lenders, but also highlight the potential downside if things go wrong. It's a balancing act, and alright, that's our breakdown of Invitation Homes' latest debt filing. What's your take on these numbers and what they signal for the company's future? Do you think this debt is a smart move or a risky gamble? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this analysis was valuable, hitting that like button really helps, and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of corporate finance. Don't forget to check out the Discord in the description to join our community. Thanks for watching. See you next time.